From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through? And the most important of all, what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, to my environment, community, and to my systems of belief. Because it's all of those that make up me, and they make up you too. And if you want to get permanent results, you're going to have to go change those things. And I'm here every week to help you get the same results in your life and to have them stick around. So thanks for being here. If you're new here, give me a few episodes. If you like what I'm doing, I'd love to ask you to give me a rating and a review. But I'd like to earn a good review, so give me a few listens. And if you're a Spotify listener, if you look down in the show notes, you're going to see a field down there where you can leave me a comment. You could say something about the show. Tell me a takeaway. Tell me a little bit about your journey. Leave something down there. I'd love to read it. And if you are on Apple Podcasts specifically, I would like to invite a written review, as it allows you to do that. I'd be very grateful. If you're looking to find a community, well, you can come on over to my free Facebook group, emphasis on the word free. We got over 6,000 members in there, all serious about weight loss, just like you. And we talk about it the right way, not pushing the fad diets and things like that. We're going to look at the mindset and really change who you are. You can find that link by going to christerrellcoaching.com. And I go live on YouTube every Monday morning, and if you want to find the YouTube channel, you can just head on over to YouTube and type in Chris Terrell Coaching. I want to talk this week about a very, very important principle. One that I did on my weight loss journey, and if I had not done it, I would not have been successful. This is one of those things I had never done before with weight loss, not to the extent I did it. And so before I tell you what the principle is, I want to say one thing about it. This principle applies universally. If there is anything you want to become very successful at, and you're not presently very successful, very skilled at, this principle you need to bring to bear. This is what you need. If you are struggling at your job and you want to do better at your job, this principle will help you. If you are struggling in your marriage and you want your relationship to do better, this principle will help you. If you are struggling with your income, this principle will help you. If you are struggling with getting yourself started on the weight loss journey, this principle will help you. If you are struggling to stay on the journey, this principle will help you. This principle is vital to lasting success. And here's the funny thing about me. I actually knew this before, but as I've mentioned before, for whatever reason, until 2019, I lived my adult life with two sets of principles. I had my work persona, and my work persona and identity had his own set of principles, his own values, his own ways of operating. And then I had my home life, where I had a different set of values. And what was interesting is I didn't mix the two. I didn't bring my home shit to work, and I didn't bring my work shit to home. And I don't know that was wise, because I developed a lot of great skills at work, and I wasn't using them in my life. And that also meant I wasn't using my principles, and I wasn't using my values. So what I'm about to say for you, I hope it has the same effect for you as it did for me when I began to realize it. Which is like, duh. Oh, well, no, duh, I should be doing this. I hope you have that feeling, but are you doing it? So before I tell you what this is, I want you to just not immediately let your mind go, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Or, oh no, I'm not doing that. Like, your brain is going to be tempted to instantly judge. That instantaneous judgment is just your ego. It's just your self-identity speaking up. And it's going to say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I don't. Right? And that's okay, because this is going to be so obvious the moment I say it. And don't ever confuse I instantly understood you with I knew that already. So be very mindful of that, right? Some of you, as soon as I say it, you're like, oh, actually, I did know that. I knew that, and I even do that at work. Or I do this in some other area. Like, you just missed it. And then some of you are going to be like, oh, that makes total sense. Yeah, I knew that. It's like, no. It's okay if you just saw it right now and it just made perfect sense to your brain. Truth often does. So it is the principle of full immersion. Full immersion. If you go consume content from any personal development coach, personal development guru, personal development person, any program, you will often find immersion is a part of it. If you go study success, you will see that the successful immersed themselves in their success. They completely made it a part of their life, a part of who they are. Now, when I was losing weight, I tried to make dieting who I am. I'm a dieter. So what did I do? I went and immersed myself with dieters. Well, that wasn't working. It was the blind leading the blind here. Like, none of us had done it. Like, think about the lunacy of this. And I'm laughing because I laugh at myself because I did this. I would go join a Facebook group full of thousands of fat people. And we're all talking about all these different approaches. We're all just trying to mastermind solving this together, but none of us are doing it. And the funny thing is, some of us would lose weight, but of course we start gaining it back and we just quietly vanish. So you never hear about failure. All you hear about is success. So when you hit failure, you're like, oh, I'm terrible. And then you go away. It's just, they're not helpful hopping into these. But of course I did it. Because I was trying to immerse myself with dieters, because I wanted to be on a diet, because I was a dieter. I was a weight losser. That's all I was interested in. So here's how I did it different. This time, I wasn't trying to immerse myself as a weight loss person. I was trying to immerse myself with thin, in shape people. Well, that was totally different. That was completely different. I needed to start seeing a different kind of way of living. Consider this for a moment. A hardcore Republican and a hardcore Democrat. Like an AOC Democrat and a Donald Trump Republican. Right? Let's put both of them in a room and ask them political conversations, and let's just see how that goes. Like, we all know how this is going to go. The paint's going to melt off the wall. The argument's going to probably get so heated. Right? And why is this? Because we have two polar opposite ways of seeing the world. You have the Democratic side and you have the Republican side. Two completely different perspectives on it. Well, consider this for a moment. You have the fat person perspective, the person that's always struggled with their weight their entire life. This is how they view the body, how they view health, how they view their abilities to do things with their body. And then you have the always in shape thin person. Well, let's put them in a room and let's ask them questions about weight and body management, and let's see how that conversation goes. I realized I had no idea how that conversation would go because I had never seen it. Like, I'd seen Republicans and Democrats argue. I had seen Christians and atheists argue. I ain't ever seen a thin person and a fat person have a conversation about real life stuff like, what do you do when you're stressed? Or what do you do when it's Thanksgiving? How do you decide how much to eat? Like, how do you decide when to stop eating? Or questions like, do you weigh yourself? What happens if you see you're up 5 pounds? What do you do? Do you do anything about it? Do you even watch? How do you keep up with it? Like, if you want to peel your weight down, how do you do it? Do you ever do it? Do you ever actually lose weight, or do you just stay the same? Do you pay attention? Like, I realized I'd never seen a big person ask any people that. And so I went and did it because I was curious. Like, well, what would people say? And it's fascinating. I learned a lot. Like, I learned a lot. Stuff that I use to this day, I learned from conversations I was having with people that were always skinny. And here's what's interesting. I was talking to my brother about this last week. And he's one of my models. Ever since I've been on my journey, I've been like chasing him. And trying to really take on a lot. I mean, literally, you might remember a podcast episode where I talked about how I determined my goal weight. But in that story, let me tell you the story, actually. I haven't told it in a while. I was like 180-ish, 185, and maybe 190, somewhere in that ballpark. And I was flying out. I went out to Wyoming to visit my brother. and we were out hiking, and I was out being active. But I remember we were driving, and I look over at him, and I'm looking at his physique. He's an inch taller than me, so he's not really much taller than me. But I'm looking at him, and I'm like, how much do you weigh? And he's like, I don't know. I think maybe around 165-ish. And I was like, okay. And then in my head, I was like, well, if he can do that, he's my brother. I could do that. Like, I wouldn't mind looking like that. Like, there's my goal. I just looked at him, picked his physique, and I was like, that's my goal. And that's what I look like now. I got it. Anyway, so, but back to the conversation I was having with him last week. I said, man, when I'd have conversations with you, I would walk away with like some mind-blowing information on how to look at things. It's like, but to you, it's like water is wet information. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say you came to my house and I was like, hey, do you want to jump in my pool? Oh, by the way, a pool is filled with something called water, and water is wet. And if you touch it, you'll get wet, and your clothes will get wet because that's what water does. So, hey, if you want to jump in my pool, you can jump into the wet water. Like, no, I would never pause to explain to you what water and wet is because I would assume you know this. Like, I don't need to explain it. But if you never knew, I probably would want to tell you that. If you were an alien, I might explain it. Or a little child, I might explain it, what's in the pool. But not to an adult. Well, you got to understand, when a person that's been struggling with weight their entire life sits down and have a conversation with a person that's been thin their entire life, and they both talk about food, and they both talk about how they manage their body, they each have water is wet kind of information. It's the stuff they wouldn't even think to say. So that thin person isn't even going to think to tell you, hey, did you know there's a difference between your stomach is empty and I'm hungry? Like, those aren't the same thing? Like, did you know that? I would have been like, what are you talking about? If your stomach's empty, that means you're supposed to eat, right? No, you don't have to have food in your stomach. In fact, you don't need to have food in your stomach a lot. I didn't know that. Like, I had no way of knowing that. So, while he's sitting there talking about body signals, I would have been completely missing this. He would have been like, talking about his like, oh yeah, when I had that empty stomach feeling in my head, I would have been translating it to, oh, he's hungry. No, he wasn't saying he was hungry. He was saying his stomach's empty. Not the same thing. And so, anyway, let's get back to the immersion thing. So what I just talked about was all these new ideas and all these new concepts I can learn by associating with someone that is like what I want to be. And I want to immerse myself with people that are like who I want to be. But I don't just want to immerse myself in that way. I do want to do that. I also want to immerse myself with information. I want to be regularly consuming information about whatever it is that I'm doing. And many of you, if you look to your past, if you see anything that you got really good at, you'll see there was probably a period of immersion, or it was a really long period of time to make up for the lack of immersion. Let me give an example of how I wanted to approach learning how to coach. I looked up how many clients people typically get in a month, and then I figured how many sessions they got in a year, and I thought, what if I do that in 3 months? What if I just figure out how to take a year's worth of experience and do it in 3 months? Because that's the world I came from, like efficiency. That's business 101. Do more with less time and do a better job, right? Like, that's okay. That's right up my alley. Well, let's do that. But what did I do? I just took a year's worth of experience and compressed it into 3 months. Okay, well, let's do it again. And then when I started the guild, I wanted to get really good at presenting weight loss information. So I scheduled multiple meetings a week. Most people in their memberships are doing like 1 or 2 meetings a week. I'm like, how about we do 5? Like, I got 5 meetings a week that I do. Why? Because it's like, I want the experience and people need the immersion. People need to be talking about it all the time. You got to just get all in on it. You got to be completely surrounding your mind with whatever it is you're working on. If you're trying to get better at finances, you need to be regularly consuming information about personal finance. If you're trying to improve your career, you need to be regularly consuming information about that. If you're trying to level up your romantic life, maybe you and your wife are struggling, you need to be regularly consuming information about being a better husband or a better wife. Not how to make them better, how to make you better. Come on, you know that. But you got to regularly consume that information. That's what you got to do. And so if you want to lose weight and keep it off, you got to regularly consume information on how to lose weight and keep it off. Not how to lose weight, on how to lose weight and keep it off. Because if you're not getting both of those, you're doing the wrong thing, right? I'm not your guy. Like, I'm here to help you lose weight and keep it off, not lose it. Because if you're just here to lose it, you're probably taking a round trip ticket to Thinville. That's lame. I want to help you take a one-way ticket to Thinville. Anyway, but you got to consume this information every day. Every day, you got to get it in. There's a person I met on social media. He told me when people ask how he lost his weight and what do, he says, listen to the Chris Terrell podcast, 1 episode a day. And then when you get to the end, just repeat it. And then you'll know how to do everything. And I love that because as soon as I heard him say it, I'm like, yes, that's full immersion. It's full immersion. Every day you're pumping this information into your brain every day. If you're struggling to get yourself started, you know what you do? You listen to an episode or two of this podcast every single day. You just keep doing it. I promise. After a month or two of that, you'll do something. You'll do something because it'll just grate at your brain. Eventually, you'll be like, well, gosh, I mean, I could do that idea. Like I'll eventually throw out an idea so simple that you'll be like, well, I could do that one. And then you just go do it. But you got to put yourself in the path to hear an easy to do idea. Something that would be very simple that you haven't thought of yet. That comes from full immersion. And you got to immerse your mind. So this is where you got to be careful. If all you're doing when you're not working and not hanging out with your kids, but you have your personal time where you consume content, if all you're doing is consuming fun TikTok stuff, which is fine, I just call that brain candy. It's fine to have brain candy, but you shouldn't only be having brain candy. You need to be having a higher dose of stuff that will enrich and nourish your mind. That's what you need. Your ears are an amazing opportunity for downloading information into your brain. And you can do it through immersion, through repetition. And your brain will literally begin to think differently. And this is what's required if you want to lose the weight and keep it off. You must think differently. Remember what I was saying earlier? The fat person and the thin person in the room talking about their weight, talking about their body. They each think differently. Albert Einstein said you cannot solve your problem with the same thinking you used when you created it. So the thinking you were using as a big person, if you want to be a thin person, you're going to have to ditch the thinking you had. I hope that all made sense. That was a whole bunch of mindset talk right there. But all right. But when you've immersed yourself, I was sort of alluding to something earlier, you're going to associate with other people, hopefully, in your real world. Now, maybe that's an online community, like maybe the guild, or maybe that's in your real life. Maybe you go to a gym, or maybe you found some friends, or you got some relatives, or you've even made a new social network. You got into your local pickleball club, whatever, right? You need to associate with people where taking care of themselves is of high value to them. You need to associate with them because proximity is power. You will be affected by the values and by the standards of the people you hang out around the most. Those people are going to affect you. They're going to affect the kinds of choices you make. Peer pressure is real. Even if you're someone that is not particularly susceptible to peer pressure, you are susceptible to it some. And you must be mindful of who you surround yourself with. You need to surround yourself with people that make you go, I could definitely be doing a little bit better. In my life, I do not ever want to be the top dog in all different circles of my life. Sure, it's fine to be top dog in a couple circles, but in other circles, I need to be bottom dog. I need to be the one that all the ones nip at because I'm not as good as them. Because I need someone to chase. I need someone to draw the greatness out of me. I need people reminding me that I am not as good as I think I am. Like, I need that. You need that. Well, that comes from immersion with other people. With other people. And on a weight loss journey, you're going to have to change how you think. You're going to have to change how you see the world. That is going to be challenging because your mind, your ego, will naturally push you away from those. If you look in your life, you will find you naturally do not like to listen to content that is in opposition to what you believe. For example, if you're a Republican, you don't like to listen to Democratic stuff. And if you're a Democrat, you don't like to listen to Republican stuff. I'm talking about that. If you're a Christian, you don't want to listen to atheist stuff. And if you're an atheist, you don't want to listen to Christian stuff, right? I know there's some of y'all that you're totally fine. You're ambiguous. You can go either way. But a lot of people, no, you don't want to listen to something that is opposite of you. And so when you go out to find your communities, if you're not careful, you'll just keep wandering into echo chambers. So you must make sure that your community is helping you. And here's a couple of tips how to know if a community is helping you. Tip number 1, it occasionally pisses you off. Like, it needs to not every time, but it occasionally needs to make you get like a hit to your ego because somebody's like better than you in an area and they just sort of give you a little gentle bop on the nose. right? You just sort of need that little metaphorical bop to be like, oh, wow. Thank you. I needed someone to call me on my shit right there. Because we're so biased towards ourselves. Humans are, we will lie to ourselves 6 ways to Sunday to preserve our ego. Ain't that true for you? I mean, I'm aware of this. I talk about it all the time, and I still am constantly catching myself doing that. And I know a lot of times it's getting through where I didn't even catch it. So I got to associate with people that humble me. I have to. You need to do that. So on your weight loss journey, you got to make sure you're associating with people that are way ahead of you on the journey you're wanting to go on. So that when you're questioning yourselves, you can look to them and they can look to you and be like, yeah, you're doing fine. I'm like, no, I feel like I'm not going to make it. Then you look to the other 5 that are down there. They're like, no, we were all there too. We've all been right where you are. You're going to make it. Sometimes you need that because sometimes you ain't got any belief left in you. Sometimes this weight loss journey is just going to come and take every little shred of belief that you got lying within you, and you will have none left. None. So what are you going to do? And sometimes your why ain't strong enough in that moment. Sometimes you got no belief left, and you look to your why to give you motivation, and it's looking a little sad in the corner. It ain't very big and strong either. And your dream's about to die because you're losing all your belief. You need people to look to be like, I don't see how I can do this. I don't see how I can make it through this. I can't do this. It's too hard. It's too hard. I can't do it. You need to be able to look to these people that can be like, borrow our belief. We know you can because we are you. We've been where you are. You need to associate with people that can tell you that you can trust them because they can show you the pictures. They can tell you the stories. They can say how they think and you're like, how do you know how I think? How do you know my thoughts? It's because we share your stories. You've got to find a community of people like that. That's what it's going to take. That's what I've discovered. Because that's what I need to help me. I need to regularly talk to people. Because I know I'm just a handful of bad months from going back the other direction. And I don't want to let that happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I have no plans for that to happen. But I know that. I know that life has the ability to hit really hard. Really hard. Well, I'm done letting life catch me off guard, so I'm going to be prepared. And one of the ways to be prepared is to have a community in my pocket that I'm a part of. This is how I got better at running when I first got into running. I just went and associated with runners that were way better than me. This is how I got good at any job that I had in the past. I just went and found somebody that was better at it than me, and then I just hung out around them so I could learn from them. You will learn so much from success because success always leaves clues. It always leaves a trail of breadcrumbs behind it. Every time. There is signs that you can follow. But if you're not hanging out around successful people, if you're just hanging out around losers, you're going to follow the trail of breadcrumbs that leads to Loserville. Because guess what? That trail leaves breadcrumbs too. And they looks the same. So you've got to make sure you're following the right trail, the trail to success. And you must make sure you're learning from the right kinds of people. And those are the people that have lost weight and kept it off, or people that were always thin. You don't need to be learning from yo-yo dieters. You don't need to be learning from the people that have never had to deal with weight if you're chronically overweight. Like, I was obese. I struggled with the weight. Here's the one thing I know. Now I'm on the other side and I talk to people that are always look the way I look now. They still don't get it. I can't talk to them about what it was like to be that big. I can't talk to them about what it was like to be a prisoner in my body. They just can't understand it. They can intellectualize it in the way that you might be able to intellectualize love from reading a book, and you could trigger and synthesize a version of the emotion, but it's not the same as the real thing. I can't give them that experience. And I've realized that's important because this weight loss journey, coming back from 100 plus pounds of weight loss that you got to do, you know, coming back from the 300s and the 400s, it's a long journey. It's going to get really hard. I mean, it just is. I wish I could say it wouldn't. I truly do, but I don't think I'm doing you any favors by deceiving you there. I think you benefit if I'm just shoot it to you straight. I think if I shoot it to you straight, you'll just prepare yourself for it. And it's going to be hard. sometimes. Not all the time. It'll always end. The hard times always end every single time. But in the middle there of the hard time, it can sometimes be, you can really kind of lose some belief in yourself. I was there. And I needed my people to talk to. If I didn't have them, I would have gone running back. I was just too sad. I was just too down in the dumps. I had people I could talk to. And then for me, it was during the pandemic. I mean, that was a dark time for me at one point. The first several months of it, it was very, very difficult. And it was my support network that got me through it. And it was myself. I mean, you got to do it yourself, but the support network helped me do it myself, if that makes sense. Because that's what you need. You don't need people that are going to solve your problems for you. You need people that are going to help you solve your problems. Everybody needs to be helping you. So one thing I found that is to be of tremendous value, if you're going to be a part of a community, is to give. Give more than you get. Every single community I go into, I try to give. Every single time. I willfully share whatever I can. If someone needs help, I step up. Because I know that I believe in the law of reciprocity. I believe what you put out there finds its way back. I mean, why not believe it, right? It doesn't hurt. And so I have found when you go into a community, put all this energy into it, the community gives back and you get so much out of it. So whatever community you decide to join it all in. Be all in. Be a part of it. It's okay if you have communities where like my all in is to be a participant. Well, then be the best participant you can be. Being all in doesn't mean you have to jump in and be leadership in this community. It doesn't mean that at all. Sometimes the right thing for you to do is to be the best participant you can be. As an example, of my running community here, which I don't participate much with anymore, I got busy, but I was looking for people to socialize with. And so when I would go to the running community, I'm always talking. I'm on social media and I'm coaching, and I don't want to talk about my weight loss journey all the time. I don't want to talk about this same period of time in my life, all of my life, right? So my job was just to go there and just to be Chris Terrell, skinny guy that likes to run. Even though people will find out, they usually do. I just don't want to talk about it. So my job is I'm there to run and to just talk to people about what races we're working on. How hard was the last run? I just want to talk about running. And that's my job, is to be a nice person to hang out with there. I don't want to be in the leadership. That's not my job. Whereas in other communities I'm in, no. I want to be in leadership, and so I'm going to do it well. Whatever role I'm going to play in a community, I just want to do it well, and I want to give as much as I can in that capacity. And I get back a ton. And I would advise you to do the same thing, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how reliably it comes back to you when you give. All right, we're going to wrap up here. If you are looking to find a community to immerse yourself in, I do want to invite you to come check out my community, the Guild of Champions. I mean, this is a community we're about as serious as they come. I mean, we're as serious as they come. And we've got people at every phase of the journey from day zero, and now we've got people into maintenance, which is really cool. And we're getting more and more and more people coming into maintenance every single month. So if you want to have the opportunity to bump shoulders with those winners that I was talking about, if you want to have the opportunity to learn from an entire community, well, come check out the Guild. You can find out more about that by going to theguildofchampions.com. Good luck on your weight loss journey. I'll see you next week on the Chris Terrell Podcast. Talk to you next week.